Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do.
One of my favorite concepts, one of my favorite books is Good to Great.
Mm.
And I think this defines so much of what athletes struggle with, especially nowadays, because like in any given moment, you're going to have a really good turn or a really good practice or a really good routine. Well, the problem and frustration with good is that what place do you get when you're good? You know, like third place, but good feels great.
Yeah.
It's not great. And so this, I think, is 9 times out of 10 where you get like misalignments of coaches' expectations versus where the athlete is. Yeah, I did a good routine. Why are they on my ass again?
Yeah.
Like, because we're trying to be great.
Yeah.
And then the disconnect is a lot of times the athletes don't know what even great looks like or what it takes to be great. And so laying that out in explicit detail so that they understand the scope of the work that it takes. Because I mean, let's be honest, like half the athletes are like, I'm here at practice. Like, what more do you want from me? I showed up.
Yeah.
Like, God, it's just the first start. Like, and then we're going to get prepared. And that's like really hard work and doing the extra drills. And then like doing all the physical, like, you know, the foundational stuff of the prehab, the rehab, the strength conditioning work, and then all the routines. And then doing the extra routine when that routine actually still wasn't good enough. So now you're prepared, but you're still not ready. And I can't tell you how many times I left a meet, and I might just have to coin this phrase, like we walked into that meet so prepared, but we weren't ready. And that's the psychological element of being excellent, right? So like, how do you work? Because that has to be there too. You can't just do all the drills and the physical work and think that you're ready to win a championship. You're out of your mind. There's the team dynamic. There's the individual mental preparedness for the intense situations that a competition are going to throw at you. And so you can get a team physically prepared, but then they're still not ready. And so to do both of those things is incredibly difficult. And that's where you have to challenge your people constantly, day in, day out, and leave them sometimes in a state of unknowing, but then there's always a follow-up. You always have to provide clarity afterwards. Like, we didn't just make you feel like trash throughout this practice because we wanted to be jerks today. We did this because we need you to know what it's like to feel this way and then still be able to kind of rise above it when a competition throws this feeling at you, inevitably this weekend or in 3 months from now, you know? And so like, otherwise the athlete's like, my coach is just an a-hole. And then, then you're a jerk and they didn't really learn anything from that experience. But like, making your athlete struggle has been scientifically proven to be the only way that we grow and get better. You have to struggle. Now, how much, is really important. There's a sweet spot, right? You can't just
crush people.
Be unsuccessful for weeks on end, months on end. That's not going to do anything, but they have to struggle if they're going to get better. And then you need a debrief to explain, what did that feel? And really it's just asking them questions like, how did you feel like that? How did you grow from that? What did you learn from that? That's honestly, we just do that every day. I think them having a huge say and opinion in their training as well has been something that was really different. When you're seeking peak performance, like the athlete should have a lot of input, because if you're going to safely push the boundaries of what a person's capable of, you're going to need to know how and when to do that. If they don't have an input on numbers and reps and like, and again, that comes with a conversation beforehand of like knowing that like, hey, this is a push week. You're going to be exhausted. We're still going to try to get a routine done. But if any time that you don't feel safe, like we can't push that threshold. Like safety is first, most, and always. But like we have to learn how to do our gymnastics and our routines when we don't feel great.
Yeah.
And there's a time for that. And it's not going to be always, but this is that week. Right. Yep. And so, and them learning to communicate and have an opinion about their training and when the time is right to do things was also another process. I'm going to say maybe an unpopular opinion. Like it's amazing how many resources we have. There are so many though, that I feel like we're just contracting the help to our athletes. Whereas the coach, and I realize why. And I realize I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a strength coach. I didn't get my, biomechanic, so we just teach like round offs and back handsprings and then we leave. Right. And then if you're struggling mentally, like go talk to the sports psych. And then, we have a counselor for that. And I'm like, The coach, though, still is the person that spends the most time with the athlete.
Correct.
And there's an inherent, we want to win, right? Like, you were in competitive college athletics, but like, if I don't get all those other conversations to show the athlete that I'm invested in them and their process and that I care and build that trust, those are all other areas where we could have conversations outside of gymnastics to where I got to know this person. And I'm not a sports psychologist. I can't diagnose why you feel this way and then give you a prescription for how to feel. And, I think that's really a hard science anyway, but like, just the simple act of them like talking to me about how like, man, I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z as we're going through this push is an incredibly valuable conversation to have with your athlete, regardless. And so I feel like we're losing a little bit of that because we have all these amazing resources. And like you said, as the coach, now I'm having to find out that they're
through someone else.
Sometimes I can't even find out because of information disclosure laws, and in some ways that's made it harder, I think, as a coach to get to really be able to like, because to push and drive your players to be amazing in the way that they want to be amazing. Because that's such a huge part of this piece. If your goal is to just like be in the mix, then we're just gonna have a great time at practice. There's no reason to challenge anyone. But like, if you're trying to win, extraordinary results takes extraordinary effort. That was a quote under my core value for fight, for hard work. As I was there, fighting allows my spin on just hard work. Like, like it's too hard or it's so hard. I can't tell you how many seniors that like finally had the light bulb go off and like what we were really challenging them. It was actually Andrew Margolis one time about a philosophy of training like you want to compete. And it was just, he looked at me one day in his senior year and was like, wait, every time in practice when I raise my hand, you want me to approach that routine like it was a meet? And I was like, yes, Andrew, for the 4th year in a row, that's exactly our standard. That's exact. And he looked at me finally with true sincerity and kind of looked at my and goes, that's really hard. And I was like, I think you finally get it. Because it absolutely is. And before, everyone just nodded their head and went back to practice.
Right.
And so it was like in that moment, he finally got it and was like, holy hell, that's really hard to do. And I was like, well, winning a national championship is really hard to do. And so like, learning lesson for me, why did it take him 4 years to truly understand that concept? And like, I'm like, damn, I did something wrong there. That wasn't his fault. That was my fault. If your athletes aren't getting your message and you've said it to them 1,000 times, the problem is not necessarily with them. It might be, but ultimately as the coach, that's your delivery problem. That's you not delivering the message or crafting the message appropriately. I want to win more than anyone. But in the end, it's college athletics. And there's a lot of damn good teams out there. And if we don't walk away with the ring on our finger this year, I don't want it to be all for nothing. And then more important, like when we do win and we have a ring, the ring is garbage. It's a piece of metal, probably made in China. Why it is meaningful and why it matters is the stories that are embedded in that thing, which is the relationships and the journey that we went on from day one till now. And then I've seen that with my guys' teams. They come back and they're like, damn, that's a good looking ring. Remember that year when, remember when coach did that? Like, it instantly goes to the stories and the experiences that we went through to earn that thing. And then so on the other side, like if we don't earn one, you still got to have those experiences and those growth lessons, those opportunities and those bonding moments, because then that was all worth it. It was all worth it because you had those things. And you don't get a ring for those things, but you'll remember and have those forever.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something you said that's super important too, which is another highlight, which is like those moments of like when it feels the worst, where like it doesn't go the way you want and it's just like it feels like crippling. Like I call those emotional catalysts, man. If you can harvest the moment there and really like give it maybe a day or two to like not be so raw, but if you can come back to that as a coach and debrief that as an athlete and be like, what can we learn from this, right? Like what can we harvest? Like that's where the most like momentum for change or positive slingshots happen. It's not in the greatest moments. It's in the darkest moments where it doesn't go the way you want, And
that's been said 1,000 different ways. And it's a message that you constantly have to keep repeating because obviously it's in those moments where it's hardest.
Yes.
But it's like, what did you really learn when you felt perfect and the routine was easy?
Yeah.
Nothing. You just cruise through.
Yeah.
So like, that's when I'm going to challenge you the most to try to get a routine done. And this is, I think, is again, another polarizing difference from men to women is guys will a lot more readily grind through
Yeah.
a gnarly routine and like land in a standing pike sit, like, cause they just barely got to their feet and they were like, I didn't die, you know,
That 1 1/4, you eat hard and still have to like front uprise, like, oh no.
right, you know, because that's so much built into the open-ended code and FIG points of men's gymnastics.
Yeah.
So like these women were physically prepared to hit their routines probably back in like November.
Mm.
And so like now it's all about every routine has to be perfect
Yeah.
all the time. And like, man, that's a tough way to go through practices day
Yeah.
in, day out.
Yeah.
It's like,
A lot of pressure.
and so like getting them to realize that having to fight through or struggle through ones when you are still sore from the circuit yesterday
Yeah.
is exactly the learning lesson that you need to learn so that you do feel invincible on the
Mm.
postseason floor.